Hey friends, my name's Georgie. I'm a breathwork and performance coach helping people gain core confidence through the power of the breath. It is a pleasure and a joy to welcome you to the Just Breathe podcast, where I'll be talking all things breathing to help empower you guys to use the power of your breath to harness your bodies and minds. In today's powerful conversation, I'll be talking to a fellow Oxygen Advantage instructor. David Jackson, aka Jacko, is the co-founder of the School of Calisthenics and Rooted Life. Jacko was kind enough to share his story with the power of the breath with me and how it helped him to recover from quite a serious head injury. And not only to recover, but to supersize his fitness levels, his endurance levels, his mindset, his focus. He said he is the fittest he's ever been and puts it down to regulating and optimizing his breathing. It was a really interesting conversation, and through his pro rugby experience and through his recovery experience from the head injury, David's first-hand knowledge is second to none. It was a really inspiring and empowering conversation, and I really hope you enjoy it. If you have any sort of interest in how to up-level your fitness, get into calisthenics, or just to optimize your strength without needing to use a machine, this is the episode for you. A little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Just Breathe podcast. Let's keep on building that strong breathing community. The more people becoming empowered and inspired by the breath, the better. All right, let's jump in to today's powerful conversation. I really hope you enjoy it. This is episode 47 of Just Breathe with David Jackson. Jacko's in the house. How you doing?
I'm very well, yeah. I'm sitting in my house. I'd love to be.
Well, you're in your house,
in my house,
your house, and I'm in my house.
But yeah.
On a Zoom house. Yes. Definitely. Such a pleasure to chat to you. I've sort of been on your radar for a while because one, I am very interested in calisthenics and have sort of been doing calisthenics but kind of winging it
that's exactly what I've been doing.
Exactly, but that's the thing, and I'm kind of tentative actually saying that, thinking, I'm saying that live and I'm a personal trainer, but like everyone, calisthenics I feel like actually is just playtime.
Exactly. Well, this is it. This is one of the big things that we have with it, of play. Like, when do you play with your training? Why does training have to be so serious? If you're not a professional athlete, why can't we have fun with our training? Why can't we have fun in life? And like, maybe training is a great gateway to open that up, because the rest of life is, let's be honest, it's serious and it's stressful at times.
And I actually love calisthenics as a personal trainer as well, and someone who's passionate about movement and moving the body, and that, a strong body is sort of a free body to a degree. Is I love calisthenics, and I work with resistance bands and TRXs as well, things like that, because I don't see why, especially for someone who's not like training. If you're training to be a bodybuilder, different, or training for some event, different. But like, why we need all this external equipment to sort of rely on to make our bodies fitter, when our bodies are such like machines. Anyway,
well, you go back like 200 years before there was a barbell and before there were any gyms or any equipment. You'll find some flipping people that are big, strong guys and girls, like, and it didn't just happen. It isn't, you don't have to go to a gym and be on a machine or lift a weight to actually get strong. That's not the proof of that. Is You don't need a research. It's not like that. Doesn't need like a research paper. That's just like history. Just look back in time.
Well, it's also it's so great. It's like
Greece.
Look at them. Like they're pretty strong, and look at what they're building and what they have to do and what they can do. And it's like you don't need a research paper for that. But yeah, I've definitely been on your radar in terms of obviously we are Oxygen Advantage buddies, both Oxygen Advantage instructors, and it's lovely that Oxygen Advantage is such a family. But I'd love to kind of dive into your story. How did this all happen? Where did the calisthenics come in? Which in essence is gymnastic strength training to a degree. It's hard stuff. And then where did the Oxygen Advantage, the interest in the breath come in, and etc.
You're like, how's this dude talking about breathing and shut your mouth and breathe? It's like, I know that. That's Instagram. I guess so I played professional rugby. Played rugby all my life as a kid, and that's something I started when I was like 6 years old. My rugby career ended in 2013 when I had a brain injury on the field in training. So I had a seizure on the field, which was later scans showed a bleed on the brain. I had to retire. It was off the back of a series of. I had my first serious concussion and taken to hospital when I was 16, and then had a series of them throughout my career. And it was just getting worse every time I got knocked out, and it was taking less to knock me out. So there was this cumulative effect of head injuries that we were unaware of. I was only told that when I seen the neurosurgeon or the consultant for my MRI results, and she was like, "Look at your history. You've been busy. Look at all these injuries you've had. And look at all these head injuries you've been in before." She was almost like not surprised that it was because what ended up being my worst head injury was playing touch. So we weren't even playing a game in training, literally just having a play about before training started, and two of us on the same team trying to catch the ball. So we weren't even opposite, just like banged into each other. And one of the lads said, "I was about to laugh actually, because it was just funny. You just hit each other, and like you hit the deck, and everyone it was about to sort of like laugh, and then I started having a seizure, a fit on the floor, and then it was like, okay, this is serious." But so that was 2013. It took me a while. Well, I tried actually to get back to playing for a number of months, like months and months and months. And then it was about 5 months later, I announced retirement after being told by the specialist that I shouldn't do contact sports anymore. And it took me a year to be able to run without getting headaches and some of my other symptoms. And effectively, that was a difficult time. That was a dark time at times. Like things like depression and stuff are part and parcel of sustaining head injuries. But I came out the other side of that, and obviously needed a new career. I couldn't do rugby anymore. So I'm a qualified science teacher. I'm an engineer by trade. Like, so I did material.
You're qualified science teacher. I love that.
I got a master's in materials engineering. I was at Loughborough Uni, and it was like, "Do you want to go back into teaching? Do you want to go into engineering?" And I was like, "Oh, no." I wanted to use like what I felt I'd learned in sport. I'd done like a diploma in sports psychology. One of the times that I'd had a previous injury where I'd had to have a bit of extended time out, so to keep busy and did a bit of study.
Yeah, you're like me. All the courses, like the list is like. Brrr.
I was just trying to like mold stuff in together. So I was doing a bit of like what we called like performance mindset with some Paralympic athletes. A friend, Tim, that would do school calisthenics with. We first started working together. A friend of mine that I played rugby with went to the same church as us and introduced me to Tim, because he was like, "Tim's doing S&C." I was at that point, I was like, I think I'd like to go into S&C. Like I like the gym, and it keeps me involved in sport. And so I went down that route, and basically sort of did like an internship with Tim to get my sort of hands-on experience. And then there was a company in Nottingham called Sport 981 do a strength and conditioning course based out of Trent University. And so I basically went and retrained in that. Tim was working in Paralympic sport. So my first sort of athletes, it was all been or Paralympics.
Right.
And the last person I've trained, or have been training, Richard White, had just got a silver in the 200 meters on
Wow.
Friday. Yeah.
Oh, wicked.
He's about to potentially, he's 45 now. He'll never say he's going to retire, but that
Right.
off the record, that may or may not have been his last Paralympics. He won gold in London and he won gold in Rio, and he's had an amazing career. And so so that's where everything was going. And in 2016 we started the school calisthenics together, because we just, like, Tim was like, he used to play rugby as well, and he dislocated his shoulder many times, and was trying to find a way to rehab his shoulders that just kept dislocating. And he took a handstand approach to it, because nothing else he was doing was working. He was like, if I can stabilize my shoulder overhead, like supporting my whole body weight, like I feel fairly confident that my shoulder is almost like a bit of a test, like a test of it, but train the test to get. Anyway, it's worked, because he's never dislocated his shoulder since.
Wow.
So we were just messing about in the gym with a bit of, like we were saying at the beginning, like about play, like we're literally just messing about. Someone actually came up to us in the gym and went, "What are you blokes doing? Just like pissing about in the." We were like laughing, going like, well, sort of what we were. Like, there was no space in the gyms to do it. No one else was doing. This is like back in 2014, like a year after my head injury. And it was a fun time, because there was like, we weren't teaching anyone calisthenics. We were just playing by ourselves, and we were rubbish at the start. Like two old rugby players. Tim had dislocated his shoulder that many times he can't remember. I had broken scapula. I'd recovered from a head injury, broken scapula in 2 places, dislocated AC joint, and rotator cuff issues, and all this sort of stuff from rugby that you speak to any ex-rugby player, they'll be able to list you off all their various different injuries and helmets. And so we were just sort of like, I described it as like exploring what a broken body could do. And actually that period of like working with Paralympic athletes, and then trying to like figure out how to do some cool stuff with my body that was fairly restrictive at times. Obviously we had a strength base from having played rugby, but I was a bit deconditioned initially. But yeah, it taught me a lot about my body and how to train the body, because none of it was out of the textbook. There isn't a textbook of like, if someone's missing both legs, how do you train them to be a sprinter? Because what do you do in the gym? Do you keep the legs on in the gym, or do you take them off? They can't, like, normally we're looking at like ankle, knee, hip extension for that triple extension explosiveness in a sprinter. Well, what if they've only really got one of those joints? Or what if on one side they've sort of got a bit of a knee joint and maybe a bit of hamstring, but we're not sure what that's doing. Like there's nothing. So you have to completely think outside of the box. And I was lucky that Tim had been doing that for about 5 years or so. So he'd already like exploded the box, and I was like trying to put pieces together for my own understanding as well. But that then really helped us to go, well, actually, I want to learn how to do a human flag, because I'm completely bored. I'd lost all my motivation to train weights when I went back in the gym. You got to think I loved training, and when rugby was taken away, like that was a fairly depressive time. But there was like, when I can get back to training, like I can't wait type of thing.
Yeah.
I get back in the gym, I'm lifting some weights, I'm doing. I mean, it's difficult when you get back into stuff because you feel a bit weak and a bit rubbish and everything. Anyway, I'm looking around in the gym at everyone else, going like, why is everyone training so hard? Like, and where's my motivation gone? Because in my narrative to myself was that I was the most motivated guy and the most disciplined guy at training. That's like what I made my like thing. I was good at that. I was good at being motivated and disciplined.
Yeah.
We're doing a fitness test. Like, I'm a small guy. Like, I was like small and fast. Like, I'm not going to do the biggest tackles. I'm not going to like this, that, and the other, but I'll be fast. And if we have a race, I'm going to try and beat you. If we have a fitness test, I'm definitely going to win it, because I could apply, like, you can apply willpower to a speed test, but if you haven't actually done the speed work, or it's just not, you can't just make. Whereas when it comes down, if you've done the training with your fitness and you apply the willpower, then I was sort of, that was my thing. So what I really struggled with was then when that narrative changed, and I was like looking around the gym going, well, why aren't I motivated anymore? And I thought it was like me. What I realized was like, It's just you haven't got anything. You're not training for anything. Like there's no game at the weekend now. So actually your motivation was linked to having a purpose, which makes sense. And it sounds obvious when I say it now. And calisthenics. So I was like, I remember looking in the mirror. I was doing exercises that I'd have done if the coach was there telling us what to do.
Yeah.
I was like, you can do anything. Like, why are you doing the same stuff? And it's sort of all I knew. So when we started just playing about with some handstands, and then it was like, oh, this calisthenics stuff. And you watch a Frank Majana video and you're like, okay, cool. I'm going to try and do a human flag. That looks cool. And you're like, that feels impossible, or even is it possible? And that's the school calisthenics. Our phrase is redefine, or our strapline is redefine your impossible, because they genuinely feel impossible, and some of them look impossible when you see them. So it was like, then training became like not a competition or a game or anything at the weekend, but it was like, can I do this thing? So it gave me a love for training again, and my motivation back. What I didn't know about the head injury, and this is where the breathing stuff comes in, is that, and this is something no one necessarily really talks about, but there's a bit more research out there now on it. Dr. Cobb, I've spoke with from Z Health Performance, he's very big on it, of rehabilitation post concussion and post like head injury is helping to restore oxygen supply back to the brain and retraining breathing patterns and habits. So the respiratory center in the brainstem gets like, basically when you like have a concussion, it's like that sort of like whiplashing effect. Like it gets disrupted. We can have a reduced when it gets disrupted, it can affect things like our CO2 tolerance that we'll know will obviously affect your breathing rates. And when our breathing rates and our breathing patterns start to change and get altered, then we end up in this vicious cycle, and the overbreathing part being part of that. And so blood flow to the brain and oxygen delivery to the brain can be reduced for not like weeks and months after a head injury, like years, if it's not necessarily dealt with. So, and I don't really know why it happened. I just started at one point, it must have been about 3 years ago, asking myself the question, maybe a little bit longer, asking myself the question like, and it was almost like a bit, I don't know if it's just a bit of an intuition type of thing, but I was asking myself the question like, are you breathing right? And I always used to think, I was like, no matter what stuff I did to release my neck, like, so I had it like, as part of the head injury, there was this whiplash type of it. So I had issues with my neck for a long time. And it's not like it's not like it's completely fine. Like I still sometimes will, but I'd have all this, like this tension, this issues around my neck and my shoulder. And it was like, no matter what sort of like massage or mobilizations I'd do, it's like, it was almost like there's something in the background, like affecting this, and like, what could that be? And breathing ticked one of those boxes of like, well, it's happening all the time. It's a movement pattern. It's using muscles. You can do it well, or you can, if you're doing it dysfunctionally. And at that point, I sort of understood training to the point of going like, if you breathe like a few thousand, 20,000, however many times a day, and each one of those is basically a repetition, and each repetition is a little bit poor, or I'm overusing other auxiliary muscles, then that's going to have a big effect over time. So I was like, maybe my breathing is a problem. And then when you open up Pandora, I call it like Pandora's box of breathing, going like, ask yourself, then you go,
oh no,
am I breathing right? And then you're like, oh, here we go. Because and you're like, and the biggest thing that I found was that it's quite easy to find like, okay, we should be diaphragmatic breathing. You go, okay, well, there's a nice long word that I've struggled to spell because I'm dyslexic. You go, okay, I get that. Diaphragm's on my breathing muscle, yada, all this stuff. And you're like, okay, cool. But how do I know if I'm doing it? That was my biggest thing. How do I know if I'm doing it? And trying to unpick that, I came across, we had Richie Norton on our podcast.
I know.
Yeah, so he's Oxford. So, and I said to him, I was like, mate, like he's combining the movement with the breathing and stuff. And I was like, I really want to understand this breathing stuff better. Like, have you got any books you'd recommend? And he was just like, Oxygen Advantage is a game changer. Sweet. And I read that book fast. Like I said, I'm not that good at, I was never good at English or anything like that at school. I was a terrible reader as a kid and things. But I read that book so fast and couldn't stop telling everyone about the benefits of nasal breathing. It was like, this is so important. This is like literally the most important thing you're going to do today is you need to breathe through it. And and it all went from there. I got to the point where, when I first started, my bolt score was like less than 10 seconds. And I was like, okay, at this point, I was doing like a 20 minute 15, like 5K. So I was like running, that's a decent 5K sort of time. And I was running like once a week, whatever, completely oblivious to whether I was breathing through my mouth or my nose. Tried to run to the end of my road through breathing through my nose and like couldn't. It's just like snots like pouring into my mouth.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
I tried doing some nasal breathing. I was like, I'm on board with this. I was a bit, to be honest, my ego is like massively struggling with the fact that my bolt score was that low, and like, how can I be that bad? Like, at least I must be like okay at this. But just when finally, after a very long time, just embrace the fact of like, this is just where you're at, and then starting to piece together like, oh, this is potentially and I don't know because I'd never tested anything before, but it's highly likely when I was playing professional rugby before my head injuries, I wasn't that bad at breathing. And it was starting to piece this thing together, going, okay, just see this bit more of a rehab type of thing. And I not in it was about 6 weeks, I knocked a minute off my 5K time.
Wow,
I was like, whoa, I was like, I'm not even doing this right. I'm just trying to breathe through my nose. And when I was doing this 5K, when I started breathing, I was nose, it was like, this isn't working. Then it was like, I was going like nose in, mouth out. And then like, by the time at the end, I was like mouth in, mouth out. But I'd at least read enough in the book that I was like, I need to make sure I'm not panting. So even when I was like mouth in, I was like, trying to take these like bigger breaths and trying to feel a bit more efficient with it. And I was like absolutely stunned because I didn't feel like I'd ran that fast either. I didn't look at my watch straight away because I was a bit, that was a bit crap. And then I was like 19 minutes 17 or something, whatever it was. I was like, that's still the fastest 5K I've ever done.
Wow.
And I was like, this is crazy because I'm not even doing it right. And then I was like, right, like trying to get more into it. I was terrible at the breathing light. I really latched onto the breath holding. I couldn't do 20 steps. I thought I was going to die and like I had a panic attack. First time I tried to do some breath holds.
Damn.
So like getting that up, and I remember even speaking to Patrick. We'd had Patrick on the podcast, which was fantastic. I'm always just flabbergasted. Like reach out to that guy, and he just will say yes and try to help everyone.
It just makes time. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's mad. So, but so I was like, I even had a call with him where I was like, when I'm up to like 30 steps, and I'm like, and just a little bit of advice from him like helped a little bit, and then I was like, I just got to the point where I was like, right, I want to do the course. I want to understand this. I've seen enough of it that it's like, it's legit, and it's having an impact on me, but I'm not doing it right. Or I'm not getting it. And I think that's a lot of people seek out an instructor because they're like, they've read the book and they implement some of it. We see some improvements, but almost like how do I do this? Coach through it. So I did the live sessions with Patrick and having him coach us through it. That was just a game changer. From there for me, and understanding takes back one of the things, you laughed at me being a science teacher. I wish you were my science teacher. I was like, we had such a laugh. I was a terrible science teacher. When I'm a teacher mode, I'm like, seriously, like, be quiet and shut up and don't be naughty. What I loved about the Oxygen Advantage was it was not right, we're going to breathe like this, and we're going to do that, and it was actually like, here's the science, here's the research, and this is actually like what's going on. This is how the gases exchange, and this is literally like what is happening in your body and the biology and the chemistry of it. And that sciencey side of it really spoke to me, resonated with me. I really enjoyed it. It took me back to that side of me that is still there and I still love. And it then meant that like I understood it on a level that goes, right, now I want to practice the different techniques because I understand what they're doing to me inside. And then also I know how to do them better or properly because I actually understand the process now. And then I did it, and I said, this is hand on heart, I did it just for I never was expecting that I would teach it. It was just like, I just need to learn this for myself. You have to get some practice clients to certify. I enjoy doing the coaching, and a few people like, tell their mates and whatnot, and then it's like all of a sudden you started teaching some oxymounted stuff when you didn't set out to do that. But yeah, so I do the calisthenics now, and I do the oxymounted as well. No, I love both of them. And the breathing side of things is like at one day, I'm not going to be doing like calisthenics, like the body will just not, but there's a certain age where it's like, okay, I'll carry on doing a few bit of easy training stuff, but maybe it will still be calisthenics because it'll be body weight. But there's going to be days where I'm like, I'm old and I'm already grey, and I'm like, I don't do human flags anymore, or like I can do a bit of a rubbish handstand if you want me to do one, but it's like,
but you're seriously strong. You are seriously strong. Like looking at your obviously aesthetically, etc. And that in itself speaks volumes that, like, I'm not saying you haven't lifted a single weight, but if your main thing is calisthenics, it certainly speaks that the body can strengthen itself.
Yeah, I haven't lifted weights for, I don't know, like 7 years or something.
Exactly. I hate weights. They make my neck hurt and they make me stiff. But calisthenics, I can flow, I can play, I can make weird positions, and it's I used to be a dancer, so it's sort of like creating strength through that like spaghetti flexibility that you have. So,
and just the thing I was going to say, in the sort of comparison with breathing though, is that I feel like I can just carry on getting better at breathing. I can be, when I'm 70, 80, hopefully I'll know more about breathing, be able to help other people more, as well as helping myself more. It's something that's not going to go away until you take your final breath. And it's a bit of an art form. It's this very sort of like amazing thing in that it is automatic. Like I haven't actually, since we've been talking, I haven't been thinking about my breathing at all, but now I'm saying I'm not thinking about my breathing. Now I'm thinking about my breathing. But so it's like whether you consciously do anything about it or not, it's still gonna there going on. How you do it when you're conscious will affect how it plays itself out when you're not thinking about it or when you're asleep. And it's like, it's just this fascinating, there's not many things within the body that is the case, that you have this option to manipulate it or change it or work on it. And because it's if we think of like some sort of sporting action, like kicking a rugby ball through the post, is like, that's a skill because it uses these muscles and all this. It's just that skill part of it. Like with breathing, it still is the skill. It still is a movement pattern. We've got the rib articulation. We've got the movement of the diaphragm, which is a muscle, the intercostals. Like it's
pelvic floor. It's like so intricate.
And it's still a movement pattern. So there's still a skill to it. There's still a way that you do it. It can be done well. It can be done badly. You can carry on working on it. It's not and it's not something that I don't see it as something like, I completed that. Like, I've completed breathing now. Tick. I'll go off and work on this other thing.
Yeah.
I mean, potentially for some people, it's like, I've got to the point where I used to be a mouth breather. I'm now nasal breathing. I feel like I'm breathing using my diaphragm. I sleep much better at night. And like, I'm cool. Like, I don't really need to take it that much further, but there's the options for all of us that, like anything, you can do it better. I think the reason I get so have a desire to carry on trying to understand it more for myself and other people is that every time you're almost like upgrading the quality of how you do it, like you feel better because of just how it's so intricately like connected to what's going on inside. You feel better, and you're like, we all want to feel better. So it's like, I I want to carry on feeling better.
Yeah, and even with the sports breathing, I definitely used to have kind of this assumption. I was like, oh well, that's for kind of like athletes that wants the extra 1%. But actually, the more I coach the oxygen advantage, the more I learn about it. I can use the sports breathing on someone that loves to go for a hike, but actually wants to enjoy the hike, and not, because obviously if you're hyperventilating, then you're in more of a sympathetic state. And I'm kind of fascinated with the eyes, the pupils dilate and everything gets a bit blurry when that's why people walk into things when they're stressed. But then if you can like calm your breathing, pupils constrict, you're in a parasympathetic state, and you can actually have this portrait mode vision, this beautiful focus on all these amazing views. And it's like, just for someone to be able to have a convo with their partner and see the view in its entirety, they can use sports breathing for. And I think that's really beautiful that, on one side you can, make a football team world champions, but on the other side, you can just help someone go for a hike and still have a conversation.
Yeah. But, and even to further extremes, like, so I'm at one end of in the sports stuff, I'm working with like professional rugby players and professional rugby teams where we're going like, how do we recover better? How do we breathe better for our performances? How are we using breath holds for like stimulated altitude training, all that sort of stuff from the oxygen. And then almost like at the other extreme. Well, I say the other extreme when there's a GP that I work with who does referrals for patients that are struggling with like chronic stress, and that might play out with some gut issues, that might play out with some anxiety and that sort of stuff, where we look at and she's identified from the consultants the session she'd have done with them, where she's like, she can see, she's not like we've talked about it a lot, so she knows plenty enough about breathing to be able to identify the dysfunctional breathing. She's like, she referred those that are relevant on, and I'll do a series of sessions with them to try to help bring that overall like stress and sympathetic tone down, like just bring the whole system down in general, and then tools to manage those sort of that stress management and the anxiety side of things. And that to me, that feels like or sound like quite extreme things. But rugby players or athletes will get nervous and anxious before a game, so there are elements to it as well. But the fascinating thing with I don't know if it's fascinating. The thing that I think shows that it is true to breathing, the oxygen advantage techniques, you can dress it up for sports performance, or you can take the elements to it and go like, well, actually, this is really going to help us with our stress response, because whether we're playing sport or not, like when we're trying to recover, like we need to have the ability to be able to down-regulate and bring that parasympathetic tone. We need to be able to manage our nerves. We need to be able to sleep better. So, and how we breathe, it's not like, it's not, there's the right way to breathe, if you know what I mean, using the ribs, using those. And so whether you are a sports person, whether you're struggling with anxiety, or whether it's just something else, if you're not breathing right, because it's linked in with all those autonomic systems within the body, it's gonna improving that is gonna have an effect on whatever it is that you want to carry on improving. So
and I think the biggest point I got from that there as well actually is that athletes are not like a mutated version of human,
exactly.
Either whether you're a sports person or a teacher person or whatever person you identify as being, we're all still people. And that, I think, is what fascinates me about the breath. Is I say, it's the most universal language on the planet, because everybody speaks breath. Everybody knows what signifies, and everybody knows if someone is,
I love that,
breathing calmly, or if someone even like if it's the breath. Or when I was singing professionally, what they used to call singing was voice on breath. It's breath, right. And it's all breath, which is people can be moved by music and the voice and singing, and actually the root of that is breath. And that it's like, try do anything without breathing for more than a minute or so, and you're probably going to struggle. So it's so universal, which can, I guess, for us that teach it, be quite overwhelming sometimes, because you're like, oh my, exciting but overwhelming. Sometimes I think, God, I could research like one nostril for the rest of my life, and I'd literally only know probably about 20%, because there's just so much to learn. And this is the thing as well, though, like we're talking about the Greeks, ancient Greeks before, that this is nothing new. It's ancient stuff.
And this is one of the things that I think, like, you can go down rabbit holes, can't you? And there's, for some people, that's what they like doing, that's what they want to do and need to do. But if you're going to be, I just see as if you're going to be coaching, and I like to ensure that the people that I'm working with have a level of understanding of the theory behind it so that they can apply it well enough and it all makes sense. But at the same time, if doing, just take that example of like, if doing researching like one nostril for 10 years, and then what's the end result of that going to be? That you should probably use both nostrils, but there's some advantages using one compared to blah, blah, blah. Like the end result is still just like what you're currently like suggesting that we do. And so I think that it's great to understand more, but also embracing like, what have we been doing for hundreds and thousands of years, and what do we already know? And actually, like, do we need it's one of my little bugbears at the minute of like, just, and this isn't just in breathing, this is just sort of in anything. It's like, unless someone's like able to quote a current research paper for it, someone will be like, that's bull.
I know.
Like, and you're like, well, but what if it's like what we've done to heal people for thousands of years? Like, does it, if it like, almost like history proves it works, like, can that not be good enough? Or even like someone goes like, for me, it works. Like, I feel the difference of it. It's like, well, that's good enough for me. Like, that probably sounds quite, that's almost like counter to what I said before about like,
no, I completely get you there. I think we're all overcomplicators in this day and age, because social media, as much of a blessing as it is, puts so much information out there. We're now, like before, you'd have to, go on a journey to a library to find a book and choose a book and sit down and read the book. And it takes time. And to a degree, it brings more specificity. Whereas now I can jump on my phone, Google, how should we breathe? Or Google a word instantly in 5 seconds, understand what it means, or be linked to some course or video to go into all this deep stuff, that now it's almost like we've got too many options, too much information. We're also overstimulated and oversaturated. It's like realizing, and that actually a real master, I interviewed Dan Brulé last week. And I think interviewing Patrick, interviewing Dan Brulé, and I'll be speaking to James Nestor soon and things. And when people have become almost a master of the information, I've noticed they can explain it in the simplest way, and they kind of delete all the bull. Whereas people that actually don't really know what they're talking about are probably the people that go, well, I need a study to know that that's correct. And it's like, well, why don't you just try it and tell me if you feel better? Because that's a study. Actually, if you read a study, that's really all they're doing anyway, is trying it, doing it, seeing if one group feels better, one group didn't do it, do they feel better, and do the people that did it feel better than them? And it's like, actually, that's the experiment in itself. So why don't you just try that on yourself? Let's call it a little experiment. We can even write down some numbers if you like with a pulse oximeter, and then you've got your own proof. And I think, but that's correct in terms of like my personal training that I do, I call intuitive fitness, of like, can you just switch off your Fitbit? And it even says on my website, like, time to break up with your Fitbit and listen to your body. Because for me, even if your Fitbit says you still got 5K to go, if you feel severe lower back pain, headache, and you're hyperventilating, it's probably time to stop. And so, but people don't think like that anymore. And it's kind of blows my mind that I'm like, trust your body, that, I don't work with reps, I work with time. I'm like, I don't care how many reps you do. I care what effort level you're giving me in that 30 seconds, because I can't tell you how many reps you have to do, because I can't possibly know how you slept last night, what stress is in your life. You could tell me where you are in your menstrual cycle, and you can adjust there.
And the quality of the reps, like, what's the point in 10 bad reps?
That's the thing. And so it's more like, I'd rather, if you've got 30 seconds, you give me 2 amazing reps, if that's what your body needs today, and then maybe tomorrow we'll do 4, and that's okay. It's like, maybe it's the world. I talked about this with Dan Brulé, actually. Maybe it's the world's desire for quick fixes. Like you see all over Facebook, don't you? Get fit in 3 days. And it's like, come on. Anyone that says that, I think is, universal bullshit of like, someone could tell you how to get fit in 3 days. But I personally, I don't know about you, but like, it sounds like you talking about as well, the journey of the oxygen advantage and of any kind of fitness and having a purpose with sports and whatever, is the enjoyment of the process of like failing, falling out of the handstand, laughing about it, getting up, doing it again. Like, that's half the fun.
It's this lie we sort of seek, that we want stuff quickly, but actually there's no satisfaction in something that comes quickly. If you did get fit in 3 days, you wouldn't be like, oh man, I worked really hard for that. Like there's the working hard through something that breeds the satisfaction.
It really does.
And without that, but that's the difficult thing. We want it quick, but actually we don't really, because what we really want is we want the feeling and then sensation and the satisfaction we get from working hard at something, but that takes time. And then it's like, so we're being pulled from these two things. Like, we want it to happen quick and we want it there, but then at the same time, like, where's the satisfaction in that? So I think that's a bit of a constant battle, and that's saying that's a constant battle for all of us. Like, I'm exactly the same. I would like stuff to come quicker that takes a long time, but then I try to remind myself of that. That's why I love these types of podcasts and stuff, because you end up hearing the advice that you need, because either the person saying it is saying it, or you're actually saying the advice that you need yourself. Like, I need to hear that for a couple of things today, and it's like,
well, yeah, exactly. Like, me as well. I've been trying to do a handstand for the last bloody year, and it's sort of
for the last 3 days, and I can't believe I haven't done one yet.
I can't believe I haven't done it yet. No, but like, literally, and it's sort of that frustrating where you're almost there, and actually that thing of, well, if you apply yourself for maybe 5-10 minutes a day, then you will get there, and it's just keep pushing. But something actually I kind of, because I'm wary of using too much of your time, but I want to ask you, as a guy, and be honest, did you see breathwork and think of a bunch of women sat in a circle in Lululemon leggings, like, very peaceful?
I'd love a pair of Lululemon leggings.
I know, they're cool, aren't they? They're so expensive though. But did you have an assumption of breathwork being a very feminine thing? I know there's a there's a thing with guys. It's better now, but guys in yoga and breathing.
Not necessarily. I'd been to plenty of yoga sessions before. From I want to be more flexible point of view, I couldn't even I wouldn't have even though the instructor or the yoga teacher will have been talking about the breath and when to breathe and stuff. The movement was so demanding. I was like, I went completely not thinking about my breath whatsoever, and like,
because yoga's hard, by the way. Everyone listening,
it was almost, but I almost like just filtered it out and wasn't even listening to it. And again, interestingly, I was having some manual therapy for like a shoulder issue I had, and the therapist was like working down the chain and like came into my diaphragm. Was like, oh man, look at your rib flare and your diaphragm's all messed up and all that. Like, and I was like, whoa. Like, she was like, really need to sort this out. And I was like, no, it's my shoulder that's hurting. Like, treat that. Like, I didn't have the like the bandwidth to be able to understand like how this may be affecting that. And it was like, and I wasn't, if you'd have said to me, look, your diaphragm is not doing very well, I'd have been like, I'm not that bothered. Like, I just didn't, because my little brain at that point was not open to the effects of that outwardly from there. So, and I tried, I know before, like, I'd heard plenty of stuff around like meditation and things before, and like tried Headspace for a little bit, and then like, just putting in stuff to YouTube, and then you'd like, it was just all too like wishy-washy for me. It wasn't my misconceptions or preconceptions weren't necessarily from a guy perspective it being all like feminine, but just it being a bit more like sat down on a mat, like with you like arming and or something like that. Like, 'cause you didn't know what it was. So coming into the Oxygen Advantage, it was a case of like, right, we're going to teach you to breathe better so you can feel better, so you
simple
perform better. And it was like, it was about none of that. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about now, and it's because it's been my own journey, so it's authentic to me, is just trying to make breath work just normal. So it isn't this thing, like, you don't have to, and I say this with the groups that I do and the course that I run and one-on-one clients, like we never do stuff really like sat on a mat, but we'll do stuff seated, but we'll also do stuff standing, and we'll do stuff walking, because life happens when you're moving and doing stuff. You do some stuff in your life sat, you do some stuff standing, you do some stuff walking and moving around and running and all sorts. Like, and what's going to be really important is, and this is what I love about the Oxygen Advantage, it's not about an hour's practice that's going to like cleanse you and sort you out. And I'm not dissing doing that at all. All I'm trying to encourage people is that, like, even if I did the most amazing 1 hour there, there's still 23 other hours in a day. And if I'm breathing really poorly for those other 23 hours, the good work you do for an hour isn't going to touch the sides on all that other stuff. So what could, like, do that, but as well, do for the 23 other hours, what are we doing, and how are we helping you with your breathing? And actually, that is far more manageable, far more likely to change our like habits, because we're continually working on something, and that's then building it into just our day-to-day life. So it's just a normal thing, whether you want to call it breath work or whether you want to call it, I'm just working on my breathing, or whatever you want to call it, is totally fine. I just want to do my little bit to try and help it be a normal thing to think about, talk about, and do, and encourage each other with, so that people can benefit from being less stressed, from breathing better, from getting better sleep, cognitively being able to function and focus better, and all the things that breathing well helps us do. Essentially just be healthier and happier in life.
Integration. And people always look surprised at me when I say, okay, stand up, we're going for a walk. And people go, what? I thought this was breath work. And I'm like, well, but what's the point? You might be able to do like 5-second breath hold seated, but what's the point if you can't do it walking? Because I don't know about you, but I don't spend the whole of my life sat down. And it's, then you can't apply it. And what's the point? And, like my partner is a yoga teacher, and even that actually authentic yoga is actually living a yogic life and applying the principles of yoga on and off the mat. So it's not so far in between, but like the idea of yoga in the West has been slightly skewed. Number one, you're either this really extreme, like sort of hippie, or it's kind of this like competitive, who's got the most expensive leggings and who can get their the highest workout, that's only meant for a certain caliber of people. And it's sort of really skewed. So, my partner's sort of mission is bringing authentic yoga back to the West, and he's amazing. And I'm doing the breath thing, where I sort of come in and, flail my arms and say, okay, now we're going to go for a walk and do some like total not yoga stuff. And that's cool. And, we're just going to and be as human as you can. So I don't know about you, but when people walk and try and do like breathe low, they look like a robot. They're like walking like trying to do it. And I'm like, guys, you know how to walk, like, come on.
But it's interesting. Well, for the record, I'm definitely more hippie than I used to be.
Me too.
But, when you ask someone to think about something that's happening deep within them, like they're breathing, I want you to, and you're giving them an instruction, and remember, one word always, or one sentence from Patrick always rings in my ear of like, breathing should be effortless. I wish I could do it in his accent, but breathing should be effortless. But the caveat is like, when someone's trying to learn to change the way if they breathe dysfunctionally, to change something, they're gonna have to think about it and try to like work on it.
Well, it's that unconscious incompetence.
Before it becomes effortless. So at the start, it's definitely not effortless. And actually, like you say, when you combine that with another movement pattern, so I want you to breathe like this and walk, but the walking bit you already know how to do. And like you say, the breathing, I'll often observe what you're seeing is like, if they end up then walking robotically, It's because the way they're trying to change, they're being robotic with their breathing. They're relaxed on nothing, and then you just see the whole system like do the same thing. So
it's very interesting though. You just ask them to change one thing, and they like they've forgotten how to walk, and it's like, you know, and it's just being like, allow yourself to be a bit more human, and just, you know, don't think about it too much. Leave the brain at the door to a degree.
Yeah, it shows how the breathing is affecting like other areas of the body.
Exactly. And it's, you know, it truly is something else. I think Patrick said this as well. A few people said it, but the gateway to the nervous system. And actually, you know, I'm learning that more and more, because I think there's a lot of, and we've talked about it a bit, but I think the fitness world has got a long way to go still in terms of sort of, I would say, and, you know, I only say this from my perspective, but especially as a woman from the fitness world, I'd say about 15% of what I see is actually quality, authentic teachings. Whereas there's so much like quick fixes, you know, going hard and fast and no pain, no gain, and just thrash your body, you know, who can lift the heaviest, who can like, you know, run and not sleep and just, and, you know, who can not eat all of this for as long as they can. And it's things where I'm like, guys, it doesn't have to be a struggle. Like it can actually be fun and enjoyable. And like, it's just that like this, you know, obviously this, I've nearly done 50 podcast episodes now, and the conversations, like you said, I gain and learn so much from every conversation I have. But the first one was a solo episode called How Less Is More Changed My Life. And truly now my eyes have been open to that through Patrick. In the fitness world, I go about and I'm sort of like, you know, there's people that have much more knowledge than me and are much more qualified than me and whatever. But looking at them from a very simple observatory standpoint, I'm like, why are you all struggling so much? Like, you all look kind of miserable. And actually, the athletes that, like, if we're looking at Usain Bolt, Mo Farah, they're like kids. They don't take anything that, you know, their training is very serious. But like even, you know, Tom Daley or the rest, always the people that are on the top podium, generally, I've noticed, have an element of play in their lives and an element of curiosity and fun. And it's kind of that, we have discipline around where we need to have discipline, but it's for a certain means to an end. It's not to put on Instagram, you know, how crazy I ran for no particular reason at all. And that's I kind of have a passion for, especially in women, for, you know, there's this whole obsession right now about having a six-pack as a woman, and like it's really interesting when I say to women, okay, but why? So how will that elevate your life?
I love the why question.
The why.
Well,
but
just tell them you've already got one. It's already there.
It's already there.
Yeah, no, it's true.
It is. And that's the thing. And it's so funny when you say, but why? Because you get this long silence. And it's like, because well, I read it and it said, you know, that it would be good.
Yeah, or I see. You actually said when you were talking about social. Yeah, when you were talking about social media before, you're saying like information overload.
Yeah.
You know how like I liked what you said around the fact that you know, before, if you wanted to learn something, you'd have to go to the library, you'd have to know the book. So it was a very deliberate, that there was a longer process, but also very deliberate. So by the fact that it's longer means you can't do as much, but then it's also very deliberate. Whereas now, if you're just a bit inquisitive, oh, what does so-and-so, you can just Google it, rather than before Google, you might have that thought and you might ask someone, or if you're not really that bothered, if you're not bothered enough to actually find out, like you're not going to find out. So so you're filtering. But there's a level up from that with social media where you might not really want a six-pack or whatever this thing is, but because you're scrolling, whoever ends up on your feed is like putting across to you what they want you to hear, which is by no means, could be a far cry from actually what you would have previously like gone to the library for.
Yeah.
So not only are we getting more, we're not actually in control of what we're getting. You can be in control of who you follow and whatnot, but then you're not in control of who advertises to you.
No, you're not.
And
you're not.
It's going to come up all the time. So
exactly.
There is definitely some self-awareness is really big on that, I think.
Well, and how do you gain self-awareness? Just bring your awareness to the breath. And that's the thing. And like, actually, to be fair, to sort of, round that off, when I really get down to the nitty-gritty with women and say, why do you want a six-pack? I usually will say, do you mean you want more energy and you want to feel stronger and capable?
Yeah. And that's cool.
And they're like, literally, their eyes light up and they sort of go, yeah, I want to feel like I can kind of do anything, like to a degree. What, my body is capable. That's a big thing.
Yeah, and that version of you may have a six-pack, but it also may not visible. So then you're working towards something far more beneficial for our mental health. Like we talk about with the calisthenics stuff is we say like, we're interested more in what you can do with your body rather than how your body looks.
And it's hilarious because those people by far have the most aesthetically strong looking bodies, because it's not like, I really do have a theory, and I mean, this is definitely proven somewhere, but I can't read all the books I've read.
I need a research paper, otherwise I'm not going to believe
exactly. But no, it's like if your goal is completely aesthetic, generally that goal will be fueled by stress, and exercise is a form of stress anyway. A form of good stress, sure, but still a form of stress. And so what I've found so far with the women I've coached, I'm still in my early days, to be honest, is that if you are running, let's say, and all you are thinking is, want to be skinny, must be skinny, want to be skinny, must be skinny. I said, you are approaching exercise from a place of stress, force, push, and pressure, and probably shame and guilt as well, and actually though, if you are, I want to be in nature,
and then when you're running, you might be breathing through your mouth,
probably
upper
because
chest,
you're
so
stressed.
You're just adding more stress into
because your nervous system will then think, if I do not achieve this goal, then I will be in danger in some way. The nervous system's so almost basic that it's like, well, it's going to be in survival mode, and then it's just stress on stress on stress on stress. Whereas I say to them, what if you approach your run from, I want to be in nature and I want to feel strong and I want to feel the freedom of being able to smash that 5K, and it's not a struggle. It's like kind of almost like a moving meditation. How good would that feel? And then it's a completely different run altogether. And you're approaching it from a place of calm and confidence, and like core confidence, where you're like, no Instagram post can knock me because my goal is beyond social media. Whereas if your goal is to be skinny, then that's within the bars and barricades of social media, because what does that mean? Skinny can mean a million different things. Like, what do you mean? It's so unattainable. So yeah, I really sort of believe in that breathing is the core of, can you redefine fitness as it not being a big struggle and stress,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I think that's a big thing. But listen, I'm aware of your time, so I'd love to sort of close out with your last few words of wisdom, in terms of, if someone's been listening to this podcast and they're like, oh, I want to get stronger and I want to breathe better, and oh my goodness, I'm so inspired, what would their first steps be from your standpoint?
I always say first steps for me is, or what I encourage people with is awareness. You need to know what you're currently doing, how you're currently breathing, if you're going to be able to make any positive changes. So that awareness is really important. And it can be some simple awareness drills of like one hand on your chest, one hand on your stomach, and just being aware of like how you breathe. But then taking that to a level, to a deeper level of going like, so how are you physically, how are you breathing? But then how's that making you feel? So what things are moving and stuff? But then how do I feel inside? Do I feel calm? Do I feel a bit stressed? Is my mind racing? Can I focus on my breathing? Like, where am I holding tension within the body? And actually being able to do that. If you were mouth breathing, breathe through the nose, and like, does that change anything? And then how many times throughout the day in different scenarios, so not always in the same seated position, like when you're washing the dishes, like, can you check in? Can you start to actually gain better awareness without using your hands to guide you? Can you start to actually just do that gradually without having that any guidance? And as you start to be more aware of, okay, I tend to feel when I breathe a little bit more from lower down, with the diaphragm a bit slower, with the nose a bit calmer, like I feel different inside. My mind feels a bit different, like, and latch onto that and see that as a good thing. And then noticing that, okay, when I'm in the car, I've actually noticed that my breathing tends to be a lot different. Or when I'm on the computer, I've noticed actually I hold tension really high up, or I've even noticed I've hold my breath, or I do these really big sighs all the time, and just start to increase our awareness as a starting point, because then you can start to make change. If you don't know what you're currently doing now, then it's, even if you have the right information, you're not going to be able to change that, because you don't know what it is that you need to change.
100%. And would you say that goes the same for calisthenics, in terms of that it actually starts with awareness of where you are now and where you want to go?
Yeah. And when you try to do stuff within calisthenics, you start to try, you do stuff, it will teach you some body awareness of going, you'll realize, like, oh crikey, the reason I can't do, why can't I do that thing or move in that particular way? And you'll be like, oh, actually my left shoulder is a lot tighter than I thought it was, or actually my core is weaker than I thought it was. And it will start, because it will take you outside of the box of what you currently do with your training, and you're going to be moving in some different ways and challenging end ranges of motion, that type of stuff. Like you'll start to realize, or you'll start to learn and get taught about your body. So your body awareness, like, maybe when you're doing a handstand or you skin the cat, you're doing something where you go upside down, is like, oh crap, I get really disorientated when I go upside down. Like my spatial awareness is not necessarily what I thought it was. And it's going to teach you a lot about your body, and that's, like, you're totally right. Like that is an awareness piece as well. And then when you start to understand that, you like use that, don't shy away from it. That's one of the things that's difficult with calisthenics sometimes. If you feel quite good at various different things, and then you try something else, you're like, oh, now I feel really weak, and like your ego takes a bit of a hit, rather than going, actually just see that as that's an area of weakness that if you strengthen it, or you gain more range there, or you loosen it off, then you're going to feel even better doing, even if you go back to doing what you're doing before, you're going to feel better doing that. It's a great tool for that. Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, it's been amazing chatting to you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How can people find you, and what have you got going on at the moment? You got any workshops coming up or anything?
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm Jacko Human Flag. YouTube channel is just David Jackson. And the website is rootedlife.co.uk, where we talk about connection with self, connection with nature, connection with others. It's a holistic approach. My wife is a functional health coach, and I do the breath work within that as well. So got an online course starting on the 12th of October, 3 weeks long. You get lifetime. You do 3 live sessions over 3 weeks, and then you get lifetime access to all the videos and all the content to download as well. And I've also got a self-paced online course for people that can't make live sessions, which is just 45 quid, and you get one-off 45 quid for access to all the content for over 4 hours of tutorials for my breathwork basics. So for those wanting to get started with those basics, and again, you get lifetime access. So you work through your own pace. You've got access to that.
I'll pop a link to your
and email support from myself.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'll pop a link to all your Insta and website and that in the show notes. So anyone listening, do just scroll down and you can directly go and follow Jacko, and his content is absolutely awesome and hilarious in a great way. And I love it. Cool. Okay. It was awesome to chat to you, and just thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. It's been awesome.
Thanks for having me.